Good morning and good evening to my dear students, those who are watching it at the respective time. Chapter 1 revision is completed for the upcoming exams. Chapter 2 Modern Business Environment is our next focus now. Very important chapter, not just chapter 2. Chapter 1, 2, 3 and 4 collective knowledge is important in order to handle the various questions and the case studies that can arise from these chapters. Chapter 1, 2, 3 and 4 are also closely interrelated. Lot of concepts will be there which we will be interconnecting. That is how we have revised chapter 1 as well, and that is how we will be revising chapter 2 as well. So primarily this chapter is divided into 4 basic broad areas, which is quality management, theory of constraints, supply chain management, gain sharing and outsourcing. In these 4 different areas we have so much of interesting concepts that student must be perfect in all these concepts. Please repeat: quality management, theory of constraints, supply chain management, gain sharing and outsourcing. And this quality management is further subdivided into 3 parts: cost of quality, business excellence model and total quality management. Student has to understand that from 3 topics, 4 topics: business excellence, supply chain, gain sharing and outsourcing, there is a good chance of expecting case studies and case scenarios, and therefore we need to be perfect. I am not saying that case study cannot come from other areas. I am only trying to tell that these topics, business excellence model, supply chain, gain sharing and outsourcing, are all tailor made for coming in the form of case studies. Now first let us take up the first area, that is quality management. Now again, quality management is divided into 3 parts: cost of quality, business excellence model, total quality management. Now as far as cost of quality is concerned, we must remember the name Philip B. Crosby. Now what does this man say? He says that businessman has a wrong notion, businessman has a wrong impression that quality means additional cost. Improving quality means spending money. To some extent it is correct that quality maintenance requires incurring of cost. But what Philip B. Crosby is telling is that if you spend more money on cost of good quality, you will definitely have some financial outflow, but the benefit that you will derive far surpasses the cost. I repeat, the benefit that you derive from incurring cost of quality far surpasses the cost that you will be incurring. So please be very clear. Philip B. Crosby has provided for 2 types of costs of quality. One is cost of good quality, which is also known as the price of conformance, and cost of poor quality, which also means price of non-conformance. Now the price of conformance or cost of good quality is again divided into prevention cost and appraisal cost. Non-conformance is again divided into internal failure cost and external failure cost. So what do you mean by cost of good quality? The cost which is incurred to maintain or improve the quality. It is a positive cost. Voluntarily the businessman will incur this cost, knowing that he has to spend money in order to improve or maintain the quality. Whereas cost of poor quality is incurred due to not maintaining quality. In other words, this cost is something which no businessman can foresee. No businessman will foresee this. It will happen and you have to incur the cost. You have no other option. Like there is a machine, and due to lack of proper maintenance there is a breakdown of that machine. When the machine breaks down, you have to incur cost of repairing that machine. That cost is not something which you are incurring voluntarily. It is not something which you are incurring happily. It is a cost which you are incurring because you are helpless, because that has occurred and you have no other option. So please understand, cost of good quality is in a positive sense of the word. Cost of poor quality is in the negative sense of the word. So what Philip B. Crosby is telling is that when you incur cost of good quality in the form of prevention cost and appraisal cost, you will be able to eliminate the defects and you will be able to identify the defects. Prevention cost will help you to eliminate the defect. Appraisal cost will only help you to identify the defect. Why is it important to eliminate the defect? Obviously to avoid failure cost. Why is it important to identify the defect? It is important to identify the defect so that the defect is not identified by the customer, it is identified in-house by the businessman. Why? Because if the customer identifies the defect, not only you will incur the cost, in order to repair the defect or replace the item for the customer, you will also suffer something called as loss of reputation, loss of goodwill, which will further affect other sales, thus resulting in loss of contribution or loss of profit. So please understand, prevention cost will help you to eliminate the defect, appraisal cost will help you to identify the defect. Appraisal cost is important so that the defect is not reaching the customer. Please understand, appraisal cost will help you to convert external failure cost into internal failure cost. Now what do you mean by internal failure and external failure? Let us be very clear. Both internal failure and external failure costs are failure costs only. Means what? There is a defect, there is a drawback, there is a error, there is a problem, there is something which has to be rectified. Only then failure cost will arise. But internal failure cost is where the defect, the drawback, the failure is identified by the businessman himself and he is rectifying that, and it does not reach, it is not known to the customer. Whereas external failure cost refers to a situation where there is an error, there is a defect, there is a drawback, there is a problem, there is some deficiency, but businessman has failed in identifying the same, and that is the reason why customer has identified. A businessman must try to avoid both internal failure as well as external failure cost, but in case practically it is not possible to eliminate the errors, as far as possible he should at least try to eliminate external failure cost, because external failure cost has financial as well as non-financial implications on the company's performance. I am repeating myself, please make running notes, it will be useful for you. Now please understand that appraisal cost will help you to convert external failure into internal failure. Appraisal cost will not help you to eliminate the failure, whereas prevention cost will help you to eliminate the failure. In other words, the failure will not arise only. Neither internal failure will arise nor external failure will arise. Whereas appraisal will only try to, you will only be able to eliminate the external failure, whereas internal failure will remain. Many students have a confusion here. The cost incurred to inspect an item is appraisal cost, but after doing the inspection, if any defect is there, to repair that defect, the cost incurred is internal failure cost. Don't get confused. It is possible that you incur appraisal cost, but internal failure cost may not happen only because, say for example, I have done inspection. I spend money on inspection, but there are no defects only. So that means what will happen? Appraisal cost will be there, but failure cost will not be there. So please remember that in case appraisal cost is incurred, there is no compulsion that some failure should happen. It is possible that I have done the appraisal and there are no defects and therefore there are no failure costs. So therefore, please have a scientific understanding and the interrelation between these four costs. Come on, repeat, what are the four costs of quality? Prevention cost, appraisal cost, internal failure cost and external failure cost. Is it clear, all of you? Now let us understand the meaning of these four in a much more in-depth fashion. Concentrate, all of you. So the first cost of good quality is prevention cost. What do you mean by prevention cost? Simple way to remember, please understand why it is incurred and when it is incurred. You should remember why and when. Now why is it incurred? It is incurred to prevent poor quality, to avoid quality problems. Okay na? What time, when, before the actual production. So please remember this very clearly. The objective is to not to identify the defect, not to know whether defect is there or no. Rather the objective is to ensure that the defect does not arise at all. So the defect shouldn't arise at all. That is the objective of prevention cost. And it is before actual production. Please understand, once the production is completed, it's not possible to prevent any defect. So you can connect this with budgetary control also, wherein we talk about feed forward control mechanism, wherein before the process itself I get to know about the situation, information about the defect, so on and so forth. Please try to understand. The next issue is, when is it incurred practically? This many students have to know. I am telling you. Remember, when you say before the process itself you have to incur prevention cost, as a manufacturing concern, I will try to incur this cost during the design stage itself, during the implementation stage itself. Please understand all of. For example, cell phone manufacturing, automobile manufacturing and all that, prevention cost is incurred during design itself. Why is it incurred? In order to prevent the defect. When is it incurred? Before process starts. So please remember, it is incurred mainly during design stage. Now design stage is a very important stage in life cycle costing also. It is during the introduction stage. So during introduction stage of the product itself, from design itself, introduction stage of the product will start. So that means what? Prevention costs should be incurred during which stage of life cycle? During introduction stage itself, we must incur prevention costs. Okay. Similarly, please understand that target costing may, we learn that cost reduction has to be done, right? Maximum possible cost reduction can be done during design stage, because it is during design stage that the costs regarding material, labor and other important manufacturing costs will get finalized. Okay. Now, what are the examples? Very important for you to know what all form part of prevention cost, because you can get a question where you are supposed to identify which cost comes under which category. Okay. Now, prevention cost includes what all? Quality planning, quality assurance. Please understand, both these things need to be done before the process starts. I can't plan about the quality after the process is over. And quality assurance means what? Quality assurance is something that there is no defect that is going to be there. It is an assurance you are giving the customer. How can you be so sure? Only when you prevent the defect. So quality assurance has to be done before the process starts. Quality assurance does not mean that you are going to identify the defect. Quality assurance means that you have eliminated the defect. Supplier evaluation, very interesting. Supplier evaluation is different. Supplier rating is different. Supplier evaluation is different. Supplier rating is different. When do you give supplier rating? After you deal with him. That comes under appraisal. Whereas supplier evaluation is before transacting with the supplier, I will do my due diligence, I will do background verification. All these things comes under prevention. New product review. When do you review a new product? Before launching the product in the market, before commercial production, you will do a review so that there should not be any defects that arise after commercial production begins. So definitely new product review, the purpose is to ensure that there are no defects that will arise once the commercial production starts. Error proofing. What do you mean by error proofing? When I say error proofing, I am referring to a situation where I ensure that the error doesn't happen. They say na bulletproof glass, error proofing. Error proofing as in verify in the beginning itself so that it is error free. So therefore that is also part of prevention cost. Simple, sir. Many times students get confused whether it is prevention or whether it is appraisal. Simple thumb rule you have to remember is that if the object is to, if the ultimate object is to prevent a defect, it is prevention cost. Because of that activity, defect is going to be prevented from arising, it is prevention cost. But because of that activity, you are going to identify the defect, you are going to detect the defect, you are going to know about the defect. In that case, it is appraisal cost. Next, similarly, capability evaluation, knowing about your capacity, you will do capability evaluation, capacity evaluation. After that only you will accept any orders. So therefore, capability evaluation is to prevent a scenario where I don't accept orders that I am unable to fulfill. Quality improvement meetings. Have meetings with your staff, invite suggestions, invite ideas to enhance the quality and ensure that there are no defects that will arise. Definitely it is part of prevention cost. Quality improvement projects, wherein I am implementing systems like various initiatives, quality control systems, quality projects, quality team meetings, wherein I am trying to implement quality as a project, in the sense that I provide extremely effective staff training, I provide extremely conducive work atmosphere, I provide extremely employee friendly atmosphere so that there is no defect that will arise. So ultimate purpose is what? That is something you have to remember, my dear students. If the ultimate objective is to ensure that defect does not arise and eliminate the defect, then it is definitely prevention cost. Quality education and training is also given to the employees so that there is no question of any defect. Appraisal cost. Why do you incur appraisal cost? What is the purpose? and when is it incurred. Just remember this. It is very easy. Why are you incurring appraisal cost? To ensure that high quality is maintained, to ensure that you conform to quality standards. Okay, please remember like this: any cost incurred to check, inspect, verify, test, audit, control is called appraisal cost. Remember, appraisal cost will not eliminate the defect. Very important. It will only detect / discover the defect. Why and when? Remember this thumb rule, all of you. Why do you incur appraisal cost? To detect, inspect, check for the defect. When do you incur? After the actual operation. Please remember this so that there is no confusion between prevention cost and appraisal cost. Does prevention cost eliminate the defect? Yes. Does appraisal cost eliminate the defect? No. Is prevention cost incurred at beginning of the process? Yes. Is appraisal cost incurred at the beginning or end of the process? End of the process. Please remember this, all of you. Very easy, very simple. Now, what are the examples of appraisal cost? Verification, quality audits, quality control. Please remember, quality planning is prevention, quality audit is appraisal. Quality assurance is prevention, quality control is appraisal. Quality control, it's there in your auditing syllabus also, standards on quality control. Why do you do a quality audit? Why do you do a quality control? To know whether or not quality is maintained. To know whether or not quality is maintained means what? You are going to check whether any errors are there, whether any defects are there. Checking and testing. Any testing is part of appraisal. Field testing, process audit, calibration of measuring and test equipment, superior review. All these kind of things, please understand the object. Object is to check, assess, verify, know, audit, examine, inspect. These are all appraisal costs. Please remember, appraisal will not eliminate the defect. Remember this, my dear student. It will only identify and discover the defect. Now, cost of poor quality. See, cost of poor quality refers to failure. Let us be very clear. There has to be failure. Only then there will be cost of poor quality. Please understand, just because you do appraisal, just because you do inspection, just because you do audit, just because you are doing verification, examination, it does not mean that failure will definitely happen. It is possible that I incur appraisal cost, and if there are no defects, that means failure cost is 0. So please understand that failure as such is mandatory. Only then you will have cost of poor quality. Okay, now failure is of two types. One is a defect, an error which is discovered by the business, that is known as internal failure. Another type of failure is where the customer has noticed / discovered your failure. Now, if business internally has discovered the defect, will it be known to the customer? No, it will not. It will be rectified by the businessman himself. That is what kind of failure? Internal failure. If customer discovered the defect, that means you have missed it. Who has discovered? Customer. That is known as external failure. Now, please understand the connection between appraisal cost and failure cost. See, why is appraisal cost important? Appraisal cost is important so that you can detect the failure. So therefore, appraisal cost will help you to detect the failure so that you are not having external failure and you are only having internal failure. Now, any failure of any kind is to be avoided. We are not encouraging internal failure, but we are saying that appraisal will help you to eliminate external failure and ensure that it remains an internal failure, thus ensuring that your reputation, your goodwill, your quality is not bad in the eyes of the customer. And that is the reason why appraisal cost is very, very important in quality management. Okay, but when I do third chapter revision, that time I will be telling you that appraisal is a non-value added activity. Yes, in lean system topic, appraisal, inspection is considered as a non-value added activity in lean system and innovation. Yes, you have to know this. Is it a cost of good quality? Yes, but in third chapter we say that Don't depend on appraisal. Don't depend on inspection. Have the confidence that your product is error free. That is a next level. That is a higher level of quality management in lean system and innovation, where the businessman is absolutely confident about the inputs and outputs, so much so that he doesn't even depend on inspection, because he simply knows for a fact that there cannot be defects in this product or even in the inputs. And that is the reason why, if you want to achieve lean management, you need to have no dependence on inspection, because you are so sure about your vendors, your processes, your controls, that you feel that inspection itself is a waste of time. That is in lean system, lean management system. Whereas in chapter 2, quality management, we are of the opinion that appraisal cost is a cost of good quality, because it will help you to prevent external failure costs, and it will ensure that the defect remains as an internal failure cost, thus protecting your reputation. Okay na? So please understand, interconnect the chapters and have a clarity of mind. So when I do chapter 3, I will be telling you that inspection is a non-value added activity. Moving forward, my dear students, if you observe carefully, the next issue is internal failure cost and external failure cost. Now, what do you mean by internal failure cost? Please understand, cost incurred to detect a defect. Repeat after me. Cost incurred to detect a defect is appraisal. Repeat. Cost incurred to detect a defect is appraisal. Cost incurred to rectify the defect is failure cost. If the defect is detected by businessman, it is internal failure cost. If the defect is detected by the customer, it is external failure cost. So please be very careful. Cost incurred to detect a defect is not a failure cost. It is appraisal. After the defect is detected, the cost incurred to rectify the defect, repair the defect, or replace the defective item, or refund the money to the customer comes under failure cost. Who has identified the defect will determine whether it is internal or external failure. Please be very clear, all of you. So cost incurred for defect which are found before the customer receives the product. Before customer receive product is the keyword here. When product is not as per quality, when it is error is there in the product or error is there in the process. So remember, repair, rectify, remedy, all this comes under internal failure, provided the defect is detected by businessman, not by the customer. What all are part of internal failure? Waste. Waste is obviously internal failure. Why will I tell customer? Scrap is internal failure. Rework, rectification, failure analysis, delays, redesign. Wherever you see the word re, it means that there is a failure, because the word re represents doing something again, because the first time you didn't do it properly. Shortages, retesting, downgrading. When you say downgrading, it means inferior quality items will not be given to customer. They will be sold as if second-hand quality goods, and therefore that is called downgrading. Downtime. When I say downtime, I am referring to breakdown of machine. Idle time of the machine is known as downtime. Lack of flexibility is also an internal failure cost, wherein you are not having flexibility with regard to volumes, you are not having flexibility with regard to speed, you are not able to increase volumes flexibly, you are not able to increase the speed of production flexibly. Specification flexibility also is important. Remember, flexibility is one of the critical success factors when we do chapter number 8. So therefore, lack of flexibility is definitely an internal failure cost. Please understand one more important point. When there is a machine, nothing happens to the machine. Machine is in good condition. Still you are incurring some money to maintain that. That is known as preventive maintenance, wherein I am doing the maintenance to ensure that the machine is in proper working condition. That is part of prevention cost. Now, in spite of taking good care, or maybe because of neglecting the machine, whatever may be the reason, there is a breakdown in the machine. The money incurred to repair that breakdown is breakdown maintenance, which comes under internal failure cost. Both are maintenance costs only when we discuss TPM. When we discuss TPM, total productive maintenance, both comes under types of maintenance cost only. But preventive maintenance is a cost of good quality because it is incurred to prevent the breakdown. Breakdown maintenance is a cost to repair, rectify, remedy the situation, the machine. That is why it is an internal failure cost. External failure, very simple to understand. It is also a cost incurred to repair, rectify and remedy the defect which are discovered by the customers not detected until and unless the product is transferred to customer. In other words, customer is detecting the defect leads to customer dissatisfaction. Please understand, here there are non-financial implications also. Non-financial impact is also there because of external failure cost. Very, very important. And therefore, businessman should try to avoid failure cost as far as possible. Even if there is a failure cost, he must try to avoid external failure cost at least as far as possible. Next, what does this include? Repairs and servicing, warranty claims, complaints, sales returns, loss of sales. You see all these words, when you see, who will come for repair and service? Customer. Who will come to claim warranty? Customer. Who will complain? Customer. Sale returns? Customer. Loss of sales means what? Loss of sales is nothing but because of negative feedback by one customer, other customers are not coming to you, thus it results in loss of sales. So therefore, it is like an opportunity cost. Environmental cost also is external failure cost, wherein your product or your process has put a negative impact on environment, thus resulting in a cost, a fine or a penalty on you, okay, which is what you are suffering. Environmental management accounting is also there in chapter 4. At that time you can connect this, because even there you have classification of environmental cost. In classification of environmental cost, in environmental management accounting also, you have environmental prevention cost, environmental appraisal cost, environmental internal failure cost, environmental external failure cost. Therefore, there is a strong correlation between cost of quality and environmental management accounting. Very important. Legal claims and opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is again loss of profit, loss of contribution, which you are suffering due to loss of sales due to negative mouth publicity. Legal claims is again where because of a product which is defective, customer has suffered some damage and therefore the customer has filed a case on you. That is a legal claim. Again, who will take legal action against the company? Obviously, customer. Customer is taking legal action means you have had external failure cost. Now, another important point is that optimum cost of quality. Please understand, cost of good quality is definitely recommended. It will help you to save, it will help you to avoid cost of poor quality. Therefore, cost of good quality is always good. Cost of good quality is always appreciated. It is always encouraged. Why? Because by incurring this cost of good quality, you are saving the cost of poor quality. Please understand this. So based on this, what you must catch the point is that there is a scenario where you need to stop incurring the cost of good quality also. Just because you want to maintain zero defect and you want to have good quality, does it mean that you spend so much money on prevention, so much money on appraisal that the financial health of the company suffers? Then the whole purpose is defeated. The whole idea is defeated. The idea is to incur cost of good quality and save cost of poor quality so that you have financial benefit as well as non-financial benefit. Simple example, there is a machine. By incurring preventive cost on that machine, I am saving breakdown cost. So that prevention cost should be there, but it should definitely be less than the cost which I am saving, which I would have otherwise incurred because of breakdown. Please understand logically, all of you. So that means what? Even cost of good quality you must incur only to some extent, only to a level, only to some limit, and beyond that limit you should not incur cost of good quality, and beyond that level, even if there are some errors, even if there are some defects, please accept it. Please have a tolerable limit. In auditing you have no, in IPCC group 2 auditing, tolerable risk, tolerable level of audit risk. Okay, so that is what we are saying here. What we are saying, incurring cost of good quality will reduce the cost of poor quality. Okay, but incurring more cost of good quality in order to achieve zero defect is not good for the economic health of the company. Therefore, optimum cost of quality is where the COGQ plus COPQ is at a minimum with the acceptable level of errors only. Students should note, just like EOQ in material, remember we have a concept called as economic order quantity in IPCC material chapter. Just like economic order quantity is for for ensuring minimum ordering cost and carrying cost. Same way, optimal COQ is for minimum cost of quality. Please understand this because very important for case study. So what are we saying? We are saying that you should incur cost of good quality. This will help you to eliminate the defects. When you eliminate the defect, you save money, you avoid losses. So therefore you are very, very happy. But there should be a limit. You can't go on spending cost of good quality just because you want to be a champion in quality management, because it will adversely affect the health of the company. It will adversely affect the economic health of the company. Please understand, my dear students. Therefore, there should be a limit where you stop incurring this cost of poor quality, good quality, so that you don't suffer economically. So that balance has to be maintained. What has to be maintained? Balance has to be maintained. That is what you need to understand as far as this is concerned. Next important issue is the PAF model. PAF model is known as prevention, appraisal and failure model. What do we understand here is that if you want to implement cost of quality, you have to follow this model. 5-step process, very simple. Gather information, then quantify the information. What all information you may have? You will have information regarding prevention cost, appraisal cost, internal failure, external failure which is going on in the company as of now. When I say quantify the information, I am referring to quantification in terms of money. Then classify the information into 4 elements. Now what are the 4 elements? Prevention, appraisal, internal failure, external failure. Then once you have that clarity, allocate the resources and remove the failure. When I say allocate the resources and remove the failure, I am telling allocate resources, spend money, put people to ensure that the cost of good quality is incurred, incur the prevention cost, incur the appraisal cost, eliminate the failure cost, and because of that you can achieve the success. You can ensure that you have successfully achieved the objective what Philip B. Crosby is recommending, and do it regularly. In other words, it's not a one-time process, it is a continuous process. Please try to understand. Next, iceberg model, very, very important. What is this model? This model says that quality is such an intangible issue that it is difficult to identify. Forget about quantifying, it is difficult to identify also. Just like an iceberg. Iceberg is what? 67% below sea level, 33% above sea level. So only 33% is visible. This balance 67% is invisible. Similarly, only a fraction of quality issues come in front of the businessman. There are so many other intangibles like excessive overtime by the staff is not good, especially when there are no special orders. Pricing or billing errors, it will never come to management. Excessive employee fluctuation, nowhere it is captured in my accounts. Employee turnover, planning delay, late paperwork, you see, complaint handling, incorrect completed sales order. So these are all things like idle capacity. These things are never quantified. Do you pass a journal entry for a machine which is lying idle in the factory? No. But is it good? Definitely it is not good. Are you understanding, all of you? You pay overtime to your workers. Definitely it is captured in the accounts. But is that overtime good or bad? If it is for the same regular work, overtime is bad. If it is for some additional work, then overtime is good from the company point of view. So similarly, time with a dissatisfied customer. All these points you need to understand. When you write a case study, you must say that even though cost of quality is definitely implementable, total quality management is implementable, cost of poor quality should be incurred, there should be a tolerable limit. You need to identify optimal COQ. Each company will have different threshold, each company will have different tolerable level, and therefore the PAF model needs to be performed, optimal COQ need to be decided, and as far as possible quality costs must be identified. Since most of them are intangible and invisible, it is difficult to identify, but best efforts must be made to identify them. Now we have completed the discussion about cost of quality. Moving to the next issue of discussion is total quality management. Very, very important for problems, for case studies, for case scenarios, everything. Okay, let us start total quality management. Come on, all of you. So, total quality management, whenever you listen to this name, you must remember two names, that is Edward Deming and Joseph M. Juran. Even in these two names, the more prominent name that we hear is Edward Deming, because he is considered as the father of quality management. Now, what is TQM? Just now we have revised about cost of quality. Now, what is the difference between cost of quality and total quality management? Please understand that cost of quality and total quality management both have similar goals and similar objectives, but there is a difference. Cost of quality is more of a concept. Cost of quality is more of an idea, and it is like a, you can say, an ideology that we must incur cost of good quality in order to reduce the cost of poor quality. But converting this concept into a principle, into an implementable mechanism, into a system, into a well-defined process is what we can call as total quality management. So, implementing quality management, the technique of implementing the concept of cost of quality is total quality management. So therefore, cost of quality is an idea. It is an idea given by Philip B. Crosby, whereas total quality management is a principle basically which defines, which is very specific about what exactly we need to do in order to implement the same. In other words, cost of quality tells us what to do, total quality management tells us what to do and how to do also. So therefore, don't have any confusion between the two. So let's look at the definition of TQM. We have divided it into a form of an arrow diagram. We need to have clarity on this because there are a lot of questions on TQM, especially in your case study digest, and hence we need to have good clarity about total quality management. Definition of TQM is the first area that we are going to look at. Now, the first thing that you need to understand about TQM is that it is integrated and comprehensive. Integrated and comprehensive system of planning and control so that products or services meet or exceed customer expectation. As you can see, the focus is not your expectation or my expectation. The focus is to meet or exceed the customer's expectation. So it's very clear that customer focus is the primary objective. Customer focus is one of the main ingredients of total quality management. Total quality management for whom? Quality management for whose sake? For the customer's sake, so that we meet or exceed the customer's expectation. Now, when you say integrated and comprehensive, what do you mean by that? It means that you can't have TQM in only one department or in one particular function of your organization. It has to be comprehensive throughout the organization and integrated. What needs to be integrated and comprehensive? A system. System of what? Planning and control. Planning alone is not important. After you plan something, to control the execution, that is also equally important. So integrated and comprehensive. What? System. System for what? Planning and control. Why do you want to have a plan and control? So that what? Products only, or even services also, products or services meet/exceed the customer expectation. So please understand, integrated and comprehensive system of planning and control so that the product or services meet or exceed the customer expectation. This is the first part of the definition. So the definition itself is divided into several parts. This is the first part. Further, TQM is defined as, come on, concentrate, this is the official definition of TQM. TQM is a collection of techniques. I repeat, TQM is a collection of techniques to improve quality. It is a collection of techniques to improve quality. What kind of techniques are we talking about? We are talking about full documentation, clear goal setting, and performance measurement. Performance measurement is a very important chapter 8. So concentrate, all of you. TQM is a collection of techniques to improve the quality. What kind of techniques? Documentation. As you all know very well, we learn in auditing that work not documented is work not done. And we all know very well that documentation is very important to have a control, and since it is a system of planning and control, full documentation is essential. In addition to that, clear goal setting as well as performance measurement. So these three are the three important techniques in order to improve quality: full documentation, clear goal setting, and performance measurement. When I say clear goal setting, I am referring to giving your employees clear goals and targets insofar as quality is concerned. Now when I say clear goal setting, you can connect this with critical success factors and key performance indicators. Please understand, in chapter 8, we need to give goals, we need to give targets to our employees, and then based on whether or not they have achieved that goals, we will do their performance measurement. That means TQM is such an important concept that performance measurement is also a part of total quality management. That means in case any entity wants to do a performance evaluation, either using a balanced scorecard model or using a building block model or using a performance pyramid or a performance prism, please understand, performance evaluation, all these four models which are there in chapter 8 give lot of emphasis on quality, because these four models which I just told you give equal importance to financial as well as non-financial factors. Now when I say non-financial factors, immediately you must understand that quality is one of the most important non-financial factors, and hence quality has to be there in any model when it comes to performance evaluation. So either ways, you can say that performance measurement is an integral part of TQM. You can also say that in order to execute efficient performance measurement, TQM has to be implemented in the organization. Without implementing TQM in the organization, you may not be able to achieve quality as your critical success factor of chapter 8. So my dear students, please remember that you need to integrate this concept of TQM and performance evaluation when you write the case study answers. Please understand, these revision cum amendment videos are very useful for students after they complete their syllabus, because when it comes to revision, a revision has to be interconnected with other chapters as well, because the questions are coming in that manner. So when you are watching the classes, the regular classes, you must go chapter by chapter, but when you are listening to revision, you must try to interlink the concepts. So therefore, when I say 8, I am referring to chapter 8 over here. So this is the second part of the definition. TQM is a collection of techniques to improve quality. And what kind of techniques are we talking about? Full documentation, clear goal setting, and performance measurement. Next, TQM is a philosophy of business behavior. When I say business behavior, I am referring to the behavior in the sense that the behavioral issues of both customers and employees. TQM is a philosophy of business behavior. Please understand, behavior plays a very important role when it comes to business. And whose behavior I am talking about? The two people, the internal and external. Internal is employee, external is customer. Please understand, both of them are equally important. So therefore, employee involvement at all levels, TQM is possible, and TQM advocates total involvement of all the employees and customer focus. So that means what? Both the stakeholders are covered here. Employees are also your stakeholders, customers are also your stakeholders. Employees need to be involved and customers' focus need to be considered. Only then TQM can be successful. So therefore, TQM is a philosophy of business behavior wherein employee involvement at all levels with customer focus is required. In other words, we are integrating the two important stakeholders, internal stakeholders and external stakeholders, that is employee involvement as well as customer focus. So this is the third part of the definition. Let's quickly revise the definition. TQM is an integrated and comprehensive system of planning and control so that products or services meet or exceed the customer's expectation. Second part, TQM is a collection of techniques to improve quality, full documentation, clear goal setting, performance measurement. TQM is a philosophy of business behavior wherein you have employee involvement at all the levels as well as customer focus. Chaliye sir. Next important aspect, 6 C's of TQM. Please understand that TQM is not just a concept to be followed, in the sense that it's not just an idea, it's something that has to be implemented, and therefore we have a lot of theory as far as TQM is concerned. Please integrate all this theory as and when you get a case study in the exam. Now 6 C's of TQM. What are the 6 C's first of all? 6 C's are important for successful implementation of TQM. Now what are the 6 C's? The first C is culture, in the sense there has to be a change in attitude. Unless and until the employees have a change in attitude, positive attitude towards TQM, you can't achieve successful TQM. Spending money alone is not sufficient. And then commitment. What do you mean by commitment? Whose commitment matters? Please understand, in an organization, if you want anything to succeed, any idea to succeed, or any system to succeed, the top management should have complete focus. The top management should have faith in that. So therefore, top management commitment is required. Okay, so culture and commitment are the 2 C's. Then we have continuous improvement. Very interesting point. Continuous improvement you can consider the concept of Kaizen also. Please understand, Kaizen also talks of continuous improvement, and continuous improvement is also part of the implementation of TQM. But there is a small difference. Chapter 3, Kaizen, talks about continuous improvement to achieve continuous cost reduction, whereas here the continuous improvement is about continuous improvement in your quality. Another important point to be noticed here is the word continuous. Please understand, TQM is not a program, it is a process. It is an ongoing process, it is a continuing process. There is no end to TQM. You can't say that I have implemented TQM yesterday, or that I have implemented TQM 10 days in a month, or that I have implemented TQM for 6 months in a year. You can't bind it by periodicity. There is no time bound situation for total quality management. Total quality management has to be continuous, because quality cannot be selective. You can't say I'll maintain quality in January and I won't maintain in February and then again maintain in March. That's not possible. Therefore, continuous improvement means it's a process and not a program. Here, when you write case study, you can connect this with Kaizen also. Why am I saying that? Please understand. Value chain analysis, which we discussed in the first chapter, helps us to achieve cost leadership and product differentiation. Product differentiation is possible when you are having superior performance or superior customer focus or superior features, in the sense that you are doing a better job than your competitors, your product is unique, your product is different, your product is superior. If you want your product to be superior, you need to have superior quality. That is what we learned in chapter 1. To have superior quality, total quality management has to be implemented. Only then you can confidently say that I have achieved product differentiation. So therefore, if you want to achieve product differentiation, you must do a value chain analysis, and after doing value chain analysis, you need to identify the activities that are creating value to the customer. After you identify the activities that create value to customer, in those activities you try to implement quality management systems. So therefore, total quality management will have a direct impact on product differentiation, in the sense that you can be unique compared to your customers, provided that your product is unique. Now, if the product is something which is common and general and regular, then no amount of TQM can help you in achieving product differentiation. It will only help you in eliminating the cost of poor quality and achieving cost leadership. So therefore, depending upon the nature of product that you have, if it is a unique product, I want to achieve product differentiation with premium pricing. If it is a regular commonplace product with heavy amount of competition, still TQM is important, because as Philip B. Crosby says, cost of good quality can be increased and cost of poor quality can be reduced, thereby achieving benefit in terms of financial savings, in terms of cost savings. So therefore, either ways, value chain analysis we learnt about cost leadership and product differentiation, both can be achieved with the help of TQM. If your product is, say for example, very common, very routine, so say for example, you are in the business of selling mineral water bottles. Now in mineral water bottles, achieving product differentiation is not so easy. It's difficult, because after all, it's mineral water, and people really don't bother. Say for example, I want to buy a bottle of mineral water and I ask for Kinley, and they say Kinley is not there, you have Aquafina. I will say fine, give me Aquafina or give me Bisleri. I won't be very particular that I want only Bisleri or I want only. In fact, we don't even read the brands of mineral water nowadays. All sorts of imitation products have come. So please understand that in such cases, do you mean to say TQM is useless? Do you mean to say TQM is useful only for unique products? No, don't write such things in the exam. Please interconnect everything. So here I want to add one more point. Chapter 1 value chain analysis is helping us to achieve cost leadership, right? So when I say cost leadership, I am referring to my price being lesser than my competitor or equal to my competitor. That is called cost leadership. So when I reduce my selling price, does it mean that I am selling at a loss? No, it doesn't mean that I am selling at a loss. It means that I am reducing my selling price and still I will try to maintain a profit. And how can you do that? Come on, how can you do that? How can you reduce the selling price and still maintain a profit? Come on. Very good. By reducing your cost. So if you reduce your cost, automatically you'll get the profit. So to reduce the cost, what do you have to do? You have to eliminate the waste. Lean system, Kaizen cost, concept of 5S, eliminate the wastage. So Kaizen will help you in cost reduction, helping you in cost leadership. Even total quality management will help you in continuous improvement. It will help you in eliminating the cost of poor quality. Thereby it will also help you in reducing the cost. So therefore TQM and Kaizen both can be a very good combination which entities can follow in order to achieve elimination of waste, maintaining of quality in a highly competitive environment in order to achieve cost leadership. Please use all these points when you write case study. I hope you are all writing running notes also. Concentrate. Next is cooperation. When I say cooperation, I am referring to employees' cooperation. We also saw in the definition that without employee involvement, there is no successful, the TQM can't be successful. And then we have control, documenting all the procedures. Please understand that documentation is an integral part of TQM. Unless you document, there's no control at all. So therefore we learn in auditing also, work not done, work not documented is work not done. Customer focus, very, very important. Even in the definition we have seen that our primary objective of TQM is that we need to meet or exceed the customer's expectations. So therefore customer focus is by default integral part of TQM. So therefore that is also one of the 6 C's. So very easy to remember: culture, commitment, continuous improvement, cooperation, control and customer focus. I repeat: culture, commitment, continuous improvement, cooperation, control and customer focus. Next, the features of TQM is the next issue, and this is similar to definition. There's nothing additionally that you need to learn. So just reproduce the definition, take out the keywords from the definition and you have your features. Nothing new as far as that is concerned. Next, coming to Deming, Edward Deming. He is known as father of quality management. He has given 14 principles. Now these 14 principles what he has given, should we have the knowledge of these 14 principles? Means the answer is yes. See, in Case Study Digest, which I am uploading separately in the form of Case Study Digest series, you all know very well, revision and amendments is uploaded separately, Case Study Digest is uploaded separately, revision and amendment is being uploaded along with the smart notes. Case Study Digest I am solving in the class along with key points. So please understand that when you get a case study, your answer should not be confined to X topic or Y topic. Say that there is a case study in which total quality management is going to be implemented, and when you write the answer, you must mention that TQM can be successfully implemented if the 14 principles of Deming can be implemented as well. So then you must write the 14 principles of Deming and then correlate each principle to the business that is given, to the situation that is given in the question. Please understand, only then our answer will look complete. So you need to define TQM, you need to explain the 6 C's of TQM, you need to also give reference to Deming's 14 principles, so that by implementing and by following those 14 principles, TQM can be implemented successfully. Now who was this guy? This fellow was a New York professor, but he became famous in Japan, famously known as quality management ka father of quality management. He gave the famous 14 principles of TQM. Okay, very, very simple. And this order of remembering also I have given so that you remember it easily. The similar sounding points and the similar meaning points I have kept. So please learn it in the fashion that I am referring to. You will learn it like this: 1 and 2 are related, 3 and 4 are connected, 5 and 6 and 7 are connected, 8 and 9 are connected, 10 and 11 connected, and then we have 12, 13 and 14. Very, very easy to remember in this manner. First two, what does he say? Create constancy of purpose towards improvement. Very, very easy to understand. Improvement should be constant. It can't be one time affair. Improve constantly and forever means the same. So create constancy of purpose towards improvement. Improve constantly and forever. Next, cease dependence on inspection. Very, very important. So Deming is saying that we should reach a situation where we don't depend on inspection at all. When can that happen? This is connected to chapter 3. When I do JIT system, I will be telling you. JIT system also believes that inspection is a non-value added activity and we should not depend on that. So cease dependence on inspection refers to eliminate dependency on inspection. Have the confidence in your supplier that the raw material will be defect free. Have confidence in your production that the finished goods will be defect free. That is what we mean when we say cease dependence on inspection. Please understand all of it. Next, move towards single supplier for any one item. Very, very interesting point. He says, Deming says, depend only on one guy for any one raw material ka item. Now here there is a positive and there is a negative side to it. When you depend only on one person for the raw material, you are depending too much on that guy, and anytime there is a delay or say he is out of business or he is not available, then immediately what happens is procurement will get stalled and procurement will not happen smoothly because the guy is not available. Now he is your regular supplier. Now move towards single supplier is having a risk of too much dependence on one guy, and therefore there is always a need to have a backup option. So therefore please have a backup option also for your supplier. Deming says keep single supplier. So he is not saying don't keep a backup supplier. He says buy from one guy the raw material, whatever you are buying. That particular raw material you buy only from one person. If my raw material is steel, I will buy only from one particular dealer. If my raw material is cement, I will buy the cement from one particular dealer, one particular company ka. But have a backup also, so that in case a situation arises where that supplier is not there, the backup option will help you. But please understand, why is Deming asking you to have only one supplier for one raw material? Please understand, even though products are similar, they may not be homogeneous. The quality will vary. The quality of cement of X company and quality of cement of Y company may be different. And therefore, when the type of raw material that you are purchasing from more than one suppliers, then there is a variation in the nature of raw material and the quality differs. And when there is a change in quality, what happens is the production process will also get affected, because in case there is a variation in the raw material quality, especially in complicated manufacturing processes, the production process has to be altered as well. Especially look at coal. For example, coal is used as a material to heat, so that the necessary heat is generated and that manufacturing company will do its production using the heat generated by the coal. In coal you have different grades, and therefore you need to ensure that the same grade is used. Similarly, even for raw material, depend on single supplier so that there is no quality variation in the input. Institute leadership, institute training on the job, institute education and self-improvement. So leadership is more of taking responsibility rather than just giving responsibility. Institute training on the job, institute education and self-improvement. In other words, continuously stay updated about what are the latest developments. So you need to have training on the job, education and self-improvement as well. Eliminate slogans and eliminate management by objectives. When we say eliminate slogans, we are referring to empty, they say empty vessels make a lot of noise. So slogans are not going to help us, only hard work is going to help us. So therefore eliminate slogans, eliminate management by objectives. When you say management by objectives, what is that? Management by objective is nothing but being selective. Being selective about applying quality principles is what you mean by management by objectives. I can't be selective when it comes to quality. I can't be selective when it comes to customer focus. I can't be partial when it comes to giving service. That is called management by objectives. Management by objectives is to be eliminated. You cannot have different management principles depending upon the situation. There's an important customer that has come and therefore you are focusing more. There's a small customer that has come, you are not focusing at all. big order has come from an MNC, you give a lot of efficiencies there, you give a lot of resources there, you spend a lot of time there, you give a lot of importance to quality there. For small orders, you are okay with defects. That is called being selective. And being very, you can say, implementation of management by objective means that. So don't be selective and don't be biased when it comes to improving quality, implementing quality. Break down barriers between departments. That is very important. See, TQM is what? Integrated and comprehensive. We have already seen that in the definition. So when TQM is integrated and comprehensive, how can you have barriers between departments? If the departments don't interact with each other at all, then there's no question of integrated concept. Are you getting my point? So departments need to complement each other, support each other, and only then TQM can be successful. So therefore, if one department is focusing on quality and the other one is not focusing on quality, the ultimate finished product will definitely have some issues. Customer will not be satisfied because you have not maintained the quality, but he doesn't know that this department is responsible or that department is responsible. He will blame the company as a whole. So please understand that it is a collective effort. Only then you can call it integrated and comprehensive, right? Remove barriers to the pride of workmanship. Very important sentence. Remove barriers to the pride of workmanship. Please understand that every person working in the organization, whether in the factory or whether in administration or whether in sales, has something called as pride of workmanship. Pride of workmanship refers to the professional pride, the pride regarding the skill that he has, and the confidence in himself. So never create any kind of barrier to the pride of workmanship. Never ask a workman or a worker or a person employed with you to compromise, or don't say anything or do anything that will hurt his pride of workmanship. Say for example, there is a worker who has worked very hard, he has done the best possible thing that he can do, and he's produced a product. Now unfortunately in the inspection process a small defect has been identified, and the defect is pretty common. Now you can't aggressively blame that particular worker for a defect that is not in his control. Please understand, this is very important. Even in chapter 8 we will be learning that a proper performance evaluation model is one where you don't blame the workers for something which is not in his control. You can blame him for something for which he is directly responsible. Controllable and uncontrollable variances we have in standard costing also. Planning variances are uncontrollable, operational variances are controllable. So please understand that you cannot blame the workers for something which is not in his control simply because it is not in his control, and it is not right to blame him for that. Please understand. So therefore remove the barriers to the pride of workmanship, adopt the new philosophy, drive out fear, transformation is everyone's job. So these 3 points Deming is telling the top management of the company. He is telling the top management that gone are the days where you used to blame the workers for every defect or every drawback that was happening. Those days are gone. It's time for you guys to take the responsibility. The top management needs to take the responsibility. Top management has to adopt to the new philosophy. Top management has to drive out fear from the employees, and transformation is everyone's job, right from the lowest level of management to the highest level of management. Transformation is everyone's job, right? So please remember these 14 principles, not in the form of memory power, but rather in the form of remember these principles in order to apply them as and when you get a case study on TQM. Next, Deming wheel is another nice method of implementing the TQM, which is also known as the plan, do, check, act cycle. Plan, wherein you establish your objectives and plans. Do is where you implement your plans. Check, measure the effectiveness. After implementation, I'll evaluate whether or not the plan is working. Act as in take corrective action regarding the plan after implementation. Now, criticism of TQM. Now, criticism of TQM is also quite important, because when you get any case study in that, you may get different bits, breakup of questions, in which one of the questions can be criticism of TQM also. So why do you think TQM should be criticized? See, there's a person called Carlson. Now what Carlson says is that TQM suffers because it focuses too much on theory and it is not focusing on practical. In simple language, this is what Carlson is trying to say. He says TQM is too much of theory. Practicality is not there. Outcomes can't be measured. Please understand this. Outcomes can't be measured. In the sense, assume I am doing preventive maintenance of a machine. I am doing regular maintenance of a machine every month so that the breakdown does not happen. Now, breakdown will not happen because I am doing preventive maintenance of the machine. Every month I am doing preventive maintenance, so breakdown never happened. So when the breakdown never happened, how will I know how much of loss I saved, how much of money I saved? Are you trying to understand? I will only know that I am spending money to maintain the machine in the form of a preventive maintenance so that breakdown does not happen. Can I quantify how many breakdowns I have avoided? Can I quantify how much money I have saved by avoiding the breakdown? No, that is the reason why it is difficult to quantify. Outcomes are not easily measurable. And then there is so much focus on documentation. Each and every process needs to be documented. Each and every step needs to be documented. So therefore, Carlson says that you're focusing too much on documentation, guys. Come on, you need to focus on doing something instead of just writing down what's happening. Carlson says, come on, start doing and stop just observing and, just saying about all these things like a theoretical manner. Come on, practically get to the job. That's what Carlson is trying to say. Focus on quality assurance instead of quality improvement is another criticism. You are focusing on quality assurance, you are not focusing on quality improvement. This is where we can also say that there's a thin line of difference between TQM and Six Sigma. Six Sigma is quality improvement, whereas this is quality assurance. That is what Carlson says. But if you look at the definition of TQM, quality improvement, definitely it is a part of TQM only, because one of the 6 C's of TQM is continuous improvement. But what he is trying to say is that actually when you implement TQM, we are focusing on quality assurance and not quality improvement. As long as defects are prevented, TQM is happy. But enhancement of that quality, TQM is not focusing. That is what Carlson is trying to say. And it is against customer expectation. What do you mean by against customer expectation? Against customer expectation refers to the fact that whatever customer is expecting from us, we are not able to match. Yes, that happens because you need to get the correct information from the customer. So there is no proper feed forward or feedback mechanism in TQM. So therefore, if you integrate feedback and feed forward mechanism, which is there in chapter number 11, budgetary control, then TQM becomes very effective because I am getting the information as far as what is the customer expectation is concerned. So when I get that information about customer expectation, by default what happens is that I am satisfied because I know what the customer is expecting. So therefore, just saying customer focus, just saying customers behavior has to be considered, customers focus has to be considered, you're not actually getting the right information about the customer. So therefore, this criticism is based on definitely some experience which Carlson might have seen, Carlson might have encountered, and that is the reason why he says these are the defects. So he says instead of that, go for total employee involvement. He says if you focus on total employee involvement by ensuring that there is employee loyalty, give them training, give them motivation and decision making powers, by default those people, the employees themselves will become motivated. They themselves know what the customer wants. They themselves will ensure that your quality management is a success. Then another guy who has criticized, his name is Albrecht. Albrecht says that TQM approach suffers because it's not suitable for service-based industry because you're focusing more on product quality and not on service quality. So therefore, Albrecht has suggested something known as total quality service. Rather, instead of TQM, he has advocated a concept called as total quality service, TQS, because he feels that TQM is more applicable only for manufacturing sector. So he says that you implement TQS, involve all the employees, remove all errors and inaccuracies. No single theory on TQM, that's the conclusion. There are different ideas. Many authors like Deming, Juran and Ishikawa have provided core areas of TQM. TQM versus Six Sigma. TQM focuses on process improvement, Six Sigma focuses on reducing the defects. But there is lot in common as well between TQM and Six Sigma. But the only point of difference what we can think of, here I am trying to give improvement, here I am trying to give process improvement, here I am focusing on reducing the defects. So therefore, TQM can be implemented even if there is no defect. Remember, all of you, many students don't have fundamental concept clarity. TQM can be implemented even if there are no defects. Remember this. Yes, I can incur prevention cost and appraisal cost, and assuming there are no defects, I can still implement TQM. Six Sigma will come into the picture only when there is a defect. Apart from this, there is lot in common between TQM and Six Sigma, because Six Sigma is also a quality improvement process, TQM is also a quality improvement, quality assurance process. Carlson is of the opinion that when he criticized TQM, Carlson is of the opinion that TQM is only focusing on quality assurance and not quality improvement. But otherwise, other authors, Deming and all those guys, they were of the opinion that even TQM is for quality improvement only. So TQM is also for quality improvement, Six Sigma is also for quality improvement. Then what is the difference? The difference is that TQM focuses on improvement of quality in a positive approach in order to prevent the defect. Even if there are no defects, I can still implement TQM. TQM is to eliminate defects. Prevention cost will eliminate the defect. Please understand. Six Sigma is implemented to reduce the defect. That means there is a problem and then Six Sigma enters. So that means TQM is a prevention, Six Sigma is a cure. TQM is like preventive health checkup. Six Sigma is like going for a particular treatment. TQM is like going to the doctor even though you are alright, just to check everything is alright or not. That is called TQM. When you have a problem and you go to the doctor, that is Six Sigma. When you take a vitamin tablet to maintain your health, it is TQM. When you take a tablet to cure you from a particular disease or a fever or a cold, that is your Six Sigma. If you take a vaccination for COVID-19, it is TQM. If you are undergoing treatment for COVID-19, that is Six Sigma. I hope the difference is clear, my dear students. Now we will be moving to the next issue of discussion, which is business excellence model. Concentrate, all of you. So the next important area is business excellence model. The first area was quality management, under which we have seen cost of quality, and we have also seen total quality management. Now we are going to take a look at business excellence model. Yeah, what exactly is this? This is a lot of theory again, and then students need to understand this in a very, very logical way. This is such a general concept that it can be applied to any business, any sector, and that is the reason why I am asking you to focus. It hasn't been tested in a very big way until now, and therefore it can be tested. Please focus. Now, what do you mean by business excellence model? As the name suggests, we need to achieve excellence in our business. Why is it important? What is it and why is it important? That is something we need to know. Now, let's understand the definition first. Business excellence model is a philosophy for what? Developing and strengthening the management system and process to improve and create value to stakeholders. Developing quality management, achieve excellence in everything. Now, when I say business excellence, what am I referring to? It's a very, very general concept. You can write in your own words also. But I want to develop and strengthen the management system and process. Okay, the first step. Improve and create value to stakeholders. Now, the word stakeholder is very important here. We are not just focusing on shareholders, we are focusing on all the stakeholders. This is where you can connect this with the concept of performance prism. In chapter 8, you have a concept called performance prism. Compared to balanced scorecard, building block model and performance pyramid, performance prism is very unique, very different, because performance prism is one model where we focus on not just shareholders and customers, but we focus on all the stakeholders. So business excellence model is also focusing on all the stakeholders. Developing quality management. So therefore, TQM has to be implemented if you want to achieve business excellence. It is a given, it's understood. And achieving excellence in everything, not just in one or two departments. How do you develop your quality management? Increase employee loyalty, wherein you can talk about employee involvement. Increasing efficiency and minimizing wastage, where we can give reference to chapter 3 lean system also. When I say increase efficiency, proper training has to be given. Training is again a prevention cost. Training is a very important prevention cost. Training will improve the efficiency, no doubt about that. Concentrate, all of you. Moving forward, and therefore you can connect these points with other topics as well. Why I am doing this, why I am asking you to focus in this manner is that business excellence model we can correlate with performance prism, total quality management. Chapter 3, that is eliminating waste, is main objective of lean system and innovation. Training to the employees to increase efficiency. The reason I am focusing on these areas is that when you get a comprehensive case study on TQM, please integrate in that business excellence model as well. Business excellence model can also be used as a tool to implement performance prism, because performance prism talks about meeting expectations of all the stakeholders. Business excellence model can be effective technique, can be an effective system to achieve a successful performance prism. Okay, so Andy Neely and Chris Adams have given performance prism, right? So to achieve performance prism successfully, can I take the help of business excellence model? Yes, very interesting. Come on. So when I say we must focus on stakeholder, I am referring to customer, employees, shareholder and society as a whole. So what will be the expectation of each stakeholder? That needs to be identified, and we need to match or even exceed, if required, the expectation of the stakeholder. And please understand, why is business excellence model required? Why is it so important to keep track? That is because business is not static, it is dynamic. Continuously it will be changing. Things change, and therefore business is dynamic in the sense that industry structure analysis, chapter 1, Michael Porter's 5 forces are not static, they are dynamic. OTT streaming has replaced DVD. See how businesses have changed overnight. Who is buying DVD nowadays? No one. OTT platforms, Netflix, Amazon Prime, etc., have replaced. E-commerce platforms have replaced physical stores in a very big way. Amazon, one of the biggest companies in the world, has replaced so many physical stores. And therefore please understand that business is dynamic. In case you fail to catch the recent developments, in case you fail to evolve, if you remain static, it's not going to help you. The best example is Netflix. How many of you know that Netflix was initially a DVD company? Yes, Netflix was a DVD company. That fellow used to sell video cassettes, video CDs, DVDs on rent. What is he doing now? At one point, 95% of his revenue was from DVDs. Now 98% of his revenue is from your subscriptions that you pay every month for your OTT, Netflix. Chalo sir. Types of business excellence model. So therefore, you need to understand that business excellence has to be implemented in a proper framework, proper structure needs to be there for implementation. And that is why we need a model, a technique, a direction. And these business excellence models help us to achieve business excellence in a structured manner. That is only help of these models. Otherwise, business excellence model is such a general concept. But please understand, it is equally important in today's world because business is dynamic. We need to develop, manage and strengthen every area of our business. We need to ensure that we achieve excellence in each and every aspect. Business is no longer static, it is dynamic. Things are changing overnight. If you don't catch the trend, you'll miss the bus and you'll become static, you'll become outdated. Please understand. Types of business excellence model, EFQM model. The most popular business excellence model is EFQM model. European Foundation for Quality Management is the full form. Very, very popular. Baldrige criteria for business excellence is the second one. This was given by a gentleman called Malcolm Baldrige from the US. Singapore's Business Excellence Framework is also there, and the Japanese Quality Award and Australian. The names of the country suggest where it has originated from. तो आ जाओ भाई, सबसे पहले we have EFQM model. You can also visit this website EFQM, www.efqm.org. From that website directly the content has been reproduced in your ICI material. Of course, proper acknowledgements have been given below that it is from that website. And therefore, what does this model suggest? This model is very, very clear. First of all, this model defines what is excellence, and that is such an important step. Unless you define what is excellence, it's not possible to achieve excellence. I want to achieve excellence. That is such a general statement. It's like giving a slogan. What Deming said, eliminate slogans. Don't give slogan, I want to be excellent, I want to be excellent. That is only a slogan. I want to pass my CA, I want to pass my CA, I want to do hard work. Those are all slogans. I'm not going to believe any of that. Unless you actually study and you actually work hard, no one's going to believe. Just because you have a slogan that says that I'm going to pass CA this time. Maybe 1 or 2 hours it will give you motivation. After that, it's of no use. So please understand that excellence needs to be defined. And what is excellence? EFQM model says managing with agility. Agility, very, very important. Being agile as in responsive, changing according to the situation, adapting yourself, managing with agility, being able to adapt to different situations. That is the meaning of managing with agility. Succeeding through the talent of people. You should be able to use the talent of people. Human resource is one of the most important strengths of an organization. But there's no use of having well-qualified staff if you don't know how to use them, how to utilize them, how to get the best out of them. That is a technique, that is an art, that is a skill to bring out the best in an employee. And therefore, succeeding through talent of people also is one of the important concepts of excellence. Developing organizational capability. Your organization's capability is defined by the employees who work for you, the systems that you have in place, and the top management's responsiveness. Only then you can say that you have organizational capability. Technically you need to have the equipments that are needed, the skilled labor that is needed, the supply chains that are needed, the relation with suppliers, relation with customers, all these form part of organizational capability. Creating a sustainable future. Sustainable. Excellence is not a one-time wonder. It's not something that you need to achieve once in a week or once in a month. It is a sustainable one. Means even in the long run. Sustainable. The excellence, what you are going to achieve, is something that can be achieved in the long term also. It is not a target which has to be achieved and then forgotten. It is something that has to be long term. Excellence is long term. That is the meaning of that. Adding value to customers. How can you not have customers when it comes to business excellence? And we say adding value to customers. What do you mean adding value to customers? Create value. Add value. When you add value to the customers, you can go for premium pricing also. Value chain analysis is required here. All are interrelated. You need to have a proper value chain analysis done. Identify what are the value added activities, focus on them and add value to the customer. He is after all the one who is responsible for your profits, for your sales. And then we have sustaining outstanding results. Very, very important. Sustain. Sustain as in maintain. You need to have consistent good results. So without consistency, you cannot have excellence. Excellence is possible only when you are consistent. I studied for 14 hours a day on Monday, and so I didn't study on Tuesday, and I couldn't study on Wednesday, and then I felt guilty on Thursday and studied for a couple of hours on Thursday. This is not excellence. Consistency and excellence cannot be in two separate places. Where there is excellence, there has to be consistency, there has to be maintaining of that particular result. So there's no excellence without consistency. Leading with vision, inspiration and integrity. Very important. Harnessing creativity and innovation. Very, very important. Please understand, innovation. learning and growth perspective बोलते हैं इसको. In balanced scorecard we have a concept called learning and growth, which is also called as innovation perspective. In balanced scorecard, when you say learning and growth perspective, I am referring to the training that you give to the employees. They should be positive towards giving ideas, towards contributing their creativity, their innovation, and therefore please understand that things are all interrelated. Please understand that in balanced scorecard approach, when you say learning and growth perspective, I am referring to harnessing creativity and innovation of the business excellence model. So the one of the concepts of excellence in EFQM model, that fundamental concept of excellence is there even in balanced scorecard. So therefore, when you implement balanced scorecard to do the performance evaluation, please ensure that you are harnessing creativity and innovation. Harnessing creativity and innovation is one of the critical success factors, one of the goals, one of the objectives of balanced scorecard approach under learning and growth perspective. Yes, that is how you have to learn this subject. And therefore, these concepts of excellence have to be understood and explained in the exam when you get a case study. Now, what is the way to remember this particular names? I mean, all these words, whatever I just told you, fundamental concept of excellence, there's a simple memory technique which you can use. Managing with agility, succeeding through talent of people. So, MSD. MSD as in our own MS Dhoni. There's no one who's watching this video who doesn't know MS Dhoni. So MS Dhoni, okay, and CA students. C for creating sustainable future, A for adding value to customers. MSD and CA students, this is the S that stands for students, are leading with vision, inspiration and integrity, harnessing creativity and innovation. Come on, let's quickly revise this. MSD, Mahendra Singh Dhoni, MSD. MSD, M for managing with agility. Yes, Dhoni manages with agility. He's not a lazy captain, he's a very active captain. Succeeding through the talent of people. Yes, Dhoni knows this very well. He uses his bowlers and his batsmen to the best possible, in the best possible manner. Developing organizational capability. Yes, Dhoni has always focused on developing team capability, not his individual capability. Creating sustainable future, concentrate all of you. Creating sustainable future is all about ensuring that you are creating a long-term future. When I say CA, Chartered Accountancy, CA student, they are creating sustainable future for themselves. They are also adding value to their clients and customers, right? Student, sustaining outstanding result. Student means exam, exam means result. This is a simple memory technique. They are leading with vision, inspiration and integrity. Yes, CA students are also leaders. They are leading with vision, inspiration and integrity. And they are harnessing creativity and innovation. Yes, yes, students have a lot of creativity and innovation. All kinds of creativity will come when they don't write, when they don't come to the office. Either the tire will be punctured, or there won't be any cab available, or it will be raining only in that part of the city. Lot of creativity, lot of innovation will be there. Okay, chalo. So let's quickly go through this. Managing with agility, I've already told you. This is a case study that is there in the study material. It is the answer for that case study also. There is an apparel company. You're going and giving a speech about apparel company, and there someone asks you about business excellence model. This is the answer to that particular case study. Right? Concentrate. Managing with agility, succeeding through the talent of people, developing organizational capability, creating sustainable future. Here you can give reference to triple bottom line. Triple bottom line is there in chapter 8, profit, people and planet, wherein three-dimensional reporting is what we talk about. Best practices, avoid child labor, low wages, etc. Add value to customers, very important. What do they need and how can we fulfill these needs? Sustaining outstanding results, leading with vision, inspiration and integrity, harnessing creativity and innovation. Quite simple, you can do it. So we've completed the first part, that is fundamental concepts of excellence. Now let's look at criteria of EFQM. Criteria of EFQM is all about how to achieve the excellence. Please understand, how to achieve the excellence. This model says that there are 5 enablers to achieve 4 results. 5 enablers to achieve 4 results. Now what are the 5 enablers? Leadership, strategy, people, partnership and resources, product, process and service. You can connect this with Indian cricket team. See, to achieve excellence, the Indian cricket team requires 5 factors to achieve success. Indian cricket team needs leadership. We need a good captain. There should be proper strategy. We need to have a proper game plan according to who is our opposite team. There has to be people. There need to be talented batsmen and talented bowlers. Only then you will have success. Partnership and resources. Very, very important. When our opening batsmen go to bat, we expect them to have a partnership. Product, process and service. Naturally, product, process and service is what ultimately will drive the businessman. His product, his process and his service are also main factors to achieve excellence. So leadership, strategy, people, partnership and resources, products, process and service. If you have these 5 enablers, you can achieve these 4 results. And what are these results I am talking about? People results. People results in the sense that employees will perform well. Customer results, customers will be satisfied. Society as a whole, society is satisfied. Business results, wherein your profitability is achieved, as simple as that. So very easy. So what did you learn first about EFQM? You learned what do you mean by excellence. That is nothing but fundamental concept of excellence. Then what did you learn? You have learned criteria of EFQM. That is how to achieve the excellence. 5 enablers and 4 results. Then implementing EFQM. How do you implement EFQM? Radar. That is a short form of remembering this. Radar framework is useful for implementing the EFQM model. Now R for results, A for approach, D for deploy, A for assess, R for refine. Please understand what is the meaning. First of all, what are the results that you desire? Please understand. What are the results that you desire? Based on that, frame your approach, plan and develop your approach. Once you know what is your approach, you have to spend time, money and put the human resources. That is nothing but deploy your resources. And then you have to assess what is the impact, whether I have been able to achieve the excellence or not. And then based on that, you can refine, you can rectify, you can improve and you can do whatever you need to enhance your excellence model. So this is the end of EFQM model. And then the next issue that we are going to take up is the theory of constraints, right? Please don't forget, in our next class we are going to start theory of constraints. Till now we have completed the revision of 3 major areas: cost of quality, total quality management and business excellence model. In our next session, that is a revision session, come amendments, we will be taking up theory of constraint, supply chain, gain sharing and outsourcing. And also the additional questions that have been added, we are going to solve them as well. Please understand. So please be updated. Please solve the questions which I have done in the class already for total quality management and even that case study. Additional questions that have been added in the form of amendment, case study digest, everything I am anyhow covering and I will be uploading in the Google Drive, in the Google Sheet. So thank you very much. I will meet you in the next class, wherein we will be completing the remainder part of chapter 2. Thank you very much. Happy revising and wish you all the best.